Afghanistan, officially the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, is a landlocked country located at the crossroads of Central and South Asia. It is bordered by Pakistan to the east and south, Iran to the west, Turkmenistan to the northwest, Uzbekistan to the north, Tajikistan to the northeast, and China to the northeast and east. Occupying 652,864 square kilometers of land. The country is predominantly mountainous with plains in the north and the southwest, which are separated by the Hindu Kush mountain range. Kabul is the country's capital and largest city. Afghanistan's population is estimated to be between 40 and 50 million. Human habitation in Afghanistan dates to the Middle Paleolithic era. Popularly referred to as the Graveyard of Empires, the land has witnessed numerous military campaigns, including those by the Persians, Alexander the Great, the Maurya Empire, Arab Muslims, the Mongols, the British, the Soviet Union, and a US-led coalition. Afghanistan also served as the source from which the Greco-Bactrians and the Mughals, among others, rose to form major empires. Because of the various conquests and periods in both the Iranian and Indian cultural spheres, the area was a center for Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and later Islam. The modern state of Afghanistan began with the Durrani Empire in the 18th century under Ahmad Shah Durrani, although Das Muhammad Khan is sometimes considered to be the founder of the first modern Afghan state. Afghanistan became a buffer state in the Great Game between the British Empire and the Russian Empire. From India, the British attempted to subjugate Afghanistan but were repelled in the First Anglo-Afghan War. The Second Anglo-Afghan War saw a British victory. Following the Third Anglo-Afghan War in 1919, Afghanistan became free of foreign political hegemony and emerged as the independent Kingdom of Afghanistan in 1926. This monarchy lasted almost half a century until Zahir Shah was overthrown in 1973, following which the Republic of Afghanistan was established. Since the late 1970s, Afghanistan's history has been dominated by extensive warfare, including coups, invasions, insurgencies, and civil wars. The conflict began in 1978 when a communist revolution established a socialist state, itself a response to the dictatorship established following a coup d'etat in 1973, and subsequent infighting prompted the Soviet Union to invade Afghanistan in 1979. The Mujahideen won against the Soviets in Soviet-Afghan War, leading to the Soviets' withdrawal in 1989. The ensuing civil war overthrew the Socialist Republic and established the Islamic State of Afghanistan through Peshawar Accord, which could not remain in force and resulted in a second civil war between Mujahideen factions in 1992. The Taliban controlled most of the country by 1996, but their Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan received little international recognition before its overthrow in the 2001 U.S. invasion of Afghanistan. The Taliban returned to power in 2021 after capturing Kabul, ending the 2001 to 2021 war. The Taliban government is widely unrecognized by the international community due to reported violations of human rights in Afghanistan, particularly regarding the rights of women in Afghanistan and the treatment of women by the Taliban. Afghanistan is rich in natural resources, including lithium, iron, zinc, and copper. It is the second largest producer of cannabis resin and third largest of both saffron and cashmere. The country is a member of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation and a founding member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Due to the effects of war in recent decades, the country has dealt with high levels of terrorism, poverty, and child malnutrition. Afghanistan remains among the world's least developed countries, ranking 182nd on the Human Development Index. Afghanistan's gross domestic product, GDP, is $81 billion by purchasing power parity and $20.1 billion by nominal values. Per capita, its GDP is among the lowest of any country as of 2020. Etymology. Some scholars suggest that the root name Afghan is derived from the Sanskrit word Asvakan, which was the name used for ancient inhabitants of the Hindu Kush. Asvakan literally means horsemen, horse breeders, or cavalrymen, from Asva, the Sanskrit and Avestan words for horse. Historically, The ethnonym Afghan was used to refer to ethnic Pashtun. The Arabic and Persian form of the name, Afghan, was first attested in the 10th century geography book Hudud al-Alam. The last part of the name, Stan, is a Persian suffix meaning place of. Therefore, Afghanistan translates to land of the Afghans or land of the Pashtun in a historical sense. According to the third edition of the Encyclopedia of Islam, the name Afghanistan, land of the Afghan/Pashtun, Afghana, Singh, Afghan, can be traced to the early 8th/14th century when it designated the easternmost part of the Kardid realm. This name was later used for certain regions in the Afavid and Mughal empires that were inhabited by Afghans. While based on a state-supporting elite of Abdali/Durrani Afghans, the Sads Durrani polity that came into being in 1160/1747 was not called Afghanistan in its own day. The name became a state designation only during the colonial intervention of the 19th century. The term Afghanistan was officially used in 1855 when the British recognized Dost Muhammad Khan as King of Afghanistan. Name of Afghanistan. The name Afghanistan means land of the Afghans. The name Afghan originally referred to a member of the Pashtun, which originates from the ethnonym Afghan. Historically, Pashtun were referred to as Afghans, the largest ethnic group of Afghanistan. The earliest reference to the name is found in the 10th century geography book known as Hudud al-Alam. The last part of the name, Stan, is a Persian suffix for place. In the early 19th century, Afghan politicians adopted the name Afghanistan for the entire Durrani Empire after its English translation had already appeared in various treaties with Qajarid Persia and British India. 6. The first time the word Afghanistan was officially used was during signing of Treaty of Gandamak, after defeat of Afghan Emir Yaqub Khan during Second Anglo-Afghan War. Afghan dynasties according to Tariq-i-Yamani, author being secretary of Mahmud of Ghazni. Afghans enrolled in Sebuktigins Ghaznavid Empire in the 10th century, as well as in the later Ghirid Kingdom, 1148 to 1215. From the beginning of the Turco-Afghan Khalji dynasty in 1290, Afghans are becoming more recognized in history among the Delhi Sultanate of India. The later Lodi dynasty and Sur dynasty of Delhi were both made up of Afghans, whose rule stretched to as far as what is now Bangladesh in the east. The term Afghanistan was officially used in 1855 when the British recognized Dost Muhammad Khan as King of Afghanistan. Name of Afghanistan. The name Afghanistan means land of the Afghans. The name Afghan originally referred to a member of the Pashtun, which originates from the ethnonym Afghan. Historically, Pashtun were referred to as Afghans, the largest ethnic group of Afghanistan. The earliest reference to the name is found in the 10th century geography book known as Hudud al-Alam. The last part of the name, Stan, is a Persian suffix for place. Other Afghan dynasties emerged during the 18th century, namely the Hotak dynasty and the Durrani Empire, which covered huge swathes of Central and South Asia. Early references to Afghanistan. The word Afghan is mentioned in the form of Afghan in the 3rd century CE by the Sasanians and as Afghana in the 6th century CE by Indian astronomer Varamihra. A people called the Afghans are mentioned several times in a 10th century geography book, Hudud al-Alam, particularly where a reference is made to a village, Saul, a pleasant village on a mountain. In it, live Afghans. Al-Biruni referred to them in the 11th century as various tribes living on the western frontier mountains of the Indus River. Ibn Battuta, a famous Moroccan scholar visiting the region in 1333, writes, "We traveled on to Kabul, formerly a vast town, the site of which is now occupied by a village inhabited by a tribe of Persians called Afghans. They hold mountains and defile and possess considerable strength and are mostly highwaymen. Their principal mountain is called Ku Sulayman." The earliest mention of the term Afghanistan appears in the 13th century in Tariq Neharat of Sef ibn Muhammad ibn Yaqub al-Harai, mentioning it as a country between Khorasan and Hind, paying tributes to the country of Shamsuddin. Furthermore, the name Afghanistan is mentioned in writing by the 16th century Mughal ruler Babur, referring to a territory south of Kabulistan. The road from Khorasan leads by way of Kandahar. It is a straight level road and does not go through any hill passes. In the country of Kabul, there are many and various tribes. Its valleys and plains are inhabited by Turks, Imaks, and Arabs. In the city and the greater part of the villages, the population consists of Tajiks Sarts. Many other of the villages and districts are occupied by Pashtun, Parachis, Tajiks, Barikis, and Afghans. In the hill country to the west reside the Hazaras and Nuktris. Among the Hazara and Nuktari tribes, there are some who speak the Mughal language. In the hill country to the northeast lies Kafiristan, such as Qadr and Gabrek. To the south is Afghanistan. Babur, 1525. The name Afghanistan is also mentioned many times in the writings of the 16th century historian Muhammad Qasim Hindu Shah, Farishta, and many others. The men of Kabul and Khilj also went home, and whenever they were questioned about the Musulmans of the Kohistan, the mountains, and how matters stood there, they said, "Don't call it Kohistan, but Afghanistan, for there is nothing there but Afghans and disturbances." Thus it is clear that for this reason the people of the country call their home in their own language Afghanistan, and themselves Afghans. The people of India call them Pathan, but the reason for this is not known. But it occurs to me that when, under the rule of Muslims, they first came to the city of Patna and dwelt there, the people of India, for that reason, call them Pathans, but God knows. Farishta, 1560 to 1620. The coined term of Afghanistan came into place in 1855, officially recognized by the British during the reign of Das Muhammad Khan, while he was forging his campaigns to reunite Afghanistan following its 70-year civil war with the Bharat-Saidurani feud following the execution of Wazir Fateh Khan Baratsai. Last Afghan Empire. Regarding the modern sovereign state of Afghanistan, Encyclopedia Britannica, Encyclopedia Iranica, and others explain that the political history of Afghanistan begins in 1709 with the rise of the Hotak dynasty, which was established by Mirwais Hotak, who is regarded as Mirwais Nika, Mirwais the grandfather. The modern Afghan kingdom begins with the rise to supremacy first of the Ghalzais and shortly afterwards of the Duranis under Ahmed Shah. M.T. Houtsma, the Encyclopedia of Islam states, "The country now known as Afghanistan has borne that name only since the middle of the 18th century, when the supremacy of the Afghan race became assured. Previously, various districts bore distinct appellations, but the country was not a definite political unit, and its component parts were not bound together by any identity of race or language. The earlier meaning of the word was simply the land of the Afghans, a limited territory which did not include many parts of the present state, but did comprise large districts now either independent or within the boundary of British India." M.T. Houtsma. British India eventually became what is now Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. History of Afghanistan. Prehistory and antiquity. Excavations of prehistoric sites suggest that humans were living in what is now Afghanistan at least 50,000 years ago, and that farming communities in the area were among the earliest in the world. An important site of early historical activities, many believe that Afghanistan compares to Egypt in the historical value of its archaeological sites. Artifacts typical of the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Bronze, and Iron Ages have been found in Afghanistan. Urban civilization is believed to have begun as early as 3000 BCE, and the early city of Mundagak, near Kandahar in the south of the country, was a center of the Helmand culture. More recent findings establish that the Indus Valley civilization stretched up towards modern-day Afghanistan. An Indus Valley site has been found on the Oxus River at Shorchagai in northern Afghanistan. After 2000 BCE, successive waves of semi-nomadic people from Central Asia began moving south into Afghanistan. Among them were many Indo-European-speaking Indo-Iranians. These tribes later migrated further into South Asia, Western Asia, and toward Europe via the area north of the Caspian Sea. The region at the time was referred to as Ariana. By the middle of the 6th century BCE, the Achaemenids overthrew the Medes and incorporated Arachosia, Arya, and Bactria within its eastern boundaries. An inscription on the tombstone of Darius I of Persia mentions the Kabul Valley in a list of the 29 countries that he had conquered. The region of Arachosia, around Kandahar in modern-day southern Afghanistan, used to be primarily Zoroastrian and played a key role in the transfer of the Avesta to Persia, and is thus considered by some to be the second homeland of Zoroastrianism. Alexander the Great and his Macedonian forces arrived in Afghanistan in 330 BCE after defeating Darius III of Persia a year earlier in the Battle of Gaugamela. Following Alexander's brief occupation, the successor state of the Seleucid Empire controlled the region until 305 BCE, when they gave much of it to the Maurya Empire as part of an alliance treaty. The Mauryans controlled the area south of the Hindu Kush until they were overthrown in about 185 BCE. Their decline began 60 years after Ashoka's rule ended, leading to the Hellenistic reconquest by the Greco-Bactrians. Much of it soon broke away and became part of the Indo-Greek kingdom. They were defeated and expelled by the Indo-Scythians in the late 2nd century BCE. The Silk Road appeared during the 1st century BCE, and Afghanistan flourished with trade, with routes to China, India, Persia, and north to the cities of Bokhara, Samarkand, and Khiva in present-day Uzbekistan. Goods and ideas were exchanged at this center point, such as Chinese silk, Persian silver, and Roman gold. While the region of present Afghanistan was mining and trading lapis lazuli stones mainly from the Badakhshan region. During the 1st century BCE, the Parthian Empire subjugated the region, but lost it to their Indo-Parthian vassals. In the mid to late 1st century CE, the vast Kushan Empire, centered in Afghanistan, became great patrons of Buddhist culture, making Buddhism flourish throughout the region. The Kushans were overthrown by the Sassanids in the 3rd century CE, though the Indo-Sassanids continued to rule at least parts of the region. They were followed by the Kidarites who, in turn, was replaced by the Hephthalites. They were replaced by the Turk Shahi in the 7th century. The Buddhist Turk Shahi of Kabul was replaced by a Hindu dynasty before the Saffarids conquered the area in 870. This Hindu dynasty was called Hindu Shahi. Much of the northeastern and southern areas of the country remained dominated by Buddhist culture. Medieval period. Arab Muslims brought Islam to Herat and Zaranj in 642 CE and began spreading eastward. Some of the native inhabitants they encountered accepted it while others revolted. Before the arrival of Islam, the region used to be home to various beliefs and cults, often resulting in syncretism between the dominant religions such as Zoroastrianism, Buddhism or Greco-Buddhism, ancient Iranian religions, Hinduism, Christianity, and Judaism. An exemplification of the syncretism in the region would be that people were patrons of Buddhism but still worshipped local Iranian gods such as Ahura Mazda, Lady Nana, Anahita, or Mir, Mitra, and portrayed Greek gods as protectors of Buddha. Hizunbils and Kabul Shahi were first conquered in 870 CE by the Safarid Muslims of Zaranj. Later, the Samanids extended their Islamic influence south of the Hindu Kush. The Ghaznavids rose to power in the 10th century. By the 11th century, Mahmud of Ghazni had defeated the remaining Hindu rulers and effectively Islamized the wider region. With the exception of Kafiristan, Mahmud made Ghazni into an important city and patronized intellectuals, such as the historian al-Biruni and the poet Ferdowsi. The Ghaznavid dynasty was overthrown by the Ghurids in 1186, whose architectural achievements included the remote minaret of Jam. The Ghurids controlled Afghanistan for less than a century before being conquered by the Khwarezmian dynasty in 1215. In 1219 CE, Genghis Khan and his Mongol army overran the region. His troops are said to have annihilated the Khwarezmian cities of Herat and Balkh, as well as Bamiyan. The destruction caused by the Mongols forced many locals to return to an agrarian rural society. Mongol rule continued with the Ilkhanate in the northwest, while the Khalji dynasty administered the Afghan tribal areas south of the Hindu Kush until the invasion of Timur, aka Tamerlane, who established the Timurid Empire in 1370. Under the rule of Shah Rukh, the city of Herat served as the focal point of the Timurid Renaissance, whose glory matched Florence of the Italian Renaissance as the center of a cultural rebirth. In the early 16th century, Babur arrived from Fergana and captured Kabul from the Arghun dynasty. Babur would go on to conquer the Afghan Lodi dynasty, who had ruled the Delhi Sultanate in the First Battle of Panipat. Between the 16th and 18th century, the Uzbek Khanate of Bokhara, Iranian Safavids, and Indian Mughals ruled parts of the territory. During the medieval period, the northwestern area of Afghanistan was referred to by the regional name Khorasan, which was commonly used up to the 19th century among natives to describe their country. Hotak dynasty. In 1709, Mirwais Hotak, a local Ghilzai tribal leader, successfully rebelled against the Safavids. He defeated Gurjan Khan, the Georgian governor of Kandahar under the Safavids, and established his own kingdom. Mirwais died in 1715 and was succeeded by his brother Abdul Aziz, who was soon killed by Mirwais's son Mahmud for possibly planning to sign a peace with the Safavids. Mahmud led the Afghan army in 1722 to the Persian capital of Isfahan and captured the city after the Battle of Gulnabad and proclaimed himself king of Persia. The Afghan dynasty was ousted from Persia by Nader Shah after the 1729 Battle of Damghan. In 1738, Nader Shah and his forces captured Kandahar in the Siege of Kandahar, the last Hotak stronghold from Shah Hussain Hotak. Soon after, the Persian and Afghan forces invaded India. Nader Shah had plundered Delhi, alongside his 16-year-old commander, Ahmad Shah Durrani, who had assisted him on these campaigns. Nader Shah was assassinated in 1747. Durrani Empire. After the death of Nader Shah in 1747, Ahmad Shah Durrani had returned to Kandahar with a contingent of 4,000 Pashtun. The Abdulis had unanimously accepted Ahmad Shah as their new leader. With his ascension in 1747, Ahmad Shah had led multiple campaigns against the Mughal Empire, Maratha Empire, and then receding Afsharid Empire. Ahmad Shah had captured Kabul and Peshawar from the Mughal-appointed governor, Nasir Khan. Ahmad Shah had then conquered Herat in 1750 and had also captured Kashmir in 1752. Ahmad Shah had launched two campaigns into Khorasan, 1750 to 1751 and 1754. 1755, that his first campaign had seen the siege of Mashhad. However, he was forced to retreat after 4 months. In November 1750, he moved to siege Nishapur, but he was unable to capture the city and was forced to retreat in early 1751. Ahmad Shah returned in 1754. He captured Tun, and on July 23rd, he sieged Mashhad once again. Mashhad had fallen on December 2nd, but Shahrukh was reappointed in 1755. He was forced to give up Torshiz, Bakars, Jam, Kaf, and Turbadiyadari to the Afghans, as well as accept Afghan sovereignty. Following this, Ahmad Shah sieged Nishapur once again and captured it. Ahmad Shah invaded India 8 times during his reign, beginning in 1748. Crossing the Indus River, his armies sacked and absorbed Lahore into the Durrani realm. He met Mughal armies at the Battle of Manipur, 1748, where he was defeated and forced to retreat back to Afghanistan. He returned the next year in 1749 and captured the area around Lahore and Punjab, presenting it as an Afghan victory for this campaign. From 1749 to 1767, Ahmad Shah led 6 more invasions, the most important being the last. The Third Battle of Panipat created a power vacuum in northern India, halting Maratha expansion. Ahmad Shah Durrani died in October 1772, and a civil war over succession followed, with his named successor, Timur Shah Durrani, succeeding him after the defeat of his brother, Suleiman Mirza. Timur Shah Durrani ascended to the throne in November 1772, having defeated a coalition under Shah Wali Khan and Humayun Mirza. Timur Shah began his reign by consolidating power toward himself and people loyal to him, purging Durrani Sardars and influential tribal leaders in Kabul and Kandahar. One of Timur Shah's reforms was to move the capital of the Durrani Empire from Kandahar to Kabul. Timur Shah fought multiple series of rebellions to consolidate the empire, and he also led campaigns into Punjab against the Sikhs like his father, though more successfully. The most prominent example of his battles during this campaign was when he led his forces under Zangi Khan Durrani, with over 18,000 men total of Afghan, Kizilbash, and Mongol cavalrymen, against over 60,000 Sikh men. The Sikhs lost over 30,000 in this battle and staged a Durrani resurgence in the Punjab region. The Durranis lost Multan in 1772 after Ahmad Shah's death. Following this victory, Timur Shah was able to lay siege to Multan and recapture it, incorporating it into the Durrani Empire once again, reintegrating it as a province until the Siege of Multan, 1818. Timur Shah was succeeded by his son Zaman Shah Durrani after his death in May 1793. Timur Shah's reign oversaw the attempted stabilization and consolidation of the empire. However, Timur Shah had over 24 sons, which plunged the empire in civil war over succession crises. Zaman Shah Durrani succeeded to the Durrani throne following the death of his father, Timur Shah Durrani. His brothers Mahmud Shah Durrani and Humayun Mirza revolted against him, with Humayun centered in Kandahar and Mahmud Shah centered in Herat. Zaman Shah would defeat Humayun and force the loyalty of Mahmud Shah Durrani. Securing his position on the throne, Zaman Shah led 3 campaigns into Punjab. The first 2 campaigns captured Lahore, but he retreated due to intel about a possible Qajar invasion. Zaman Shah embarked on his 3rd campaign for Punjab in 1800 to deal with a rebellious Ranjit Singh. However, he was forced to withdraw, and Zaman Shah's reign was ended by Mahmud Shah Durrani. However, just under 2 years into his reign, Mahmud Shah Durrani was deposed by his brother Shah Shuja Durrani on 13 July 1803. Shah Shuja attempted to consolidate the Durrani realm, but was deposed by his brother at the Battle of Nimla, 1809. Mahmud Shah Durrani defeated Shah Shuja and forced him to flee, usurping the throne again. His second reign began on May 3, 1809. Baratsai Dynasty and British Wars. By the early 19th century, the Afghan Empire was under threat from the Persians in the west and the Sikh Empire in the east. Fateh Khan, leader of the Baratsai tribe, installed many of his brothers in positions of power throughout the empire. Fateh Khan was brutally murdered in 1818 by Mahmud Shah. As a result, the brothers of Fateh Khan and the Baratsai tribe rebelled, and a civil war brewed. During this turbulent period, Afghanistan fractured into many states, including the Principality of Kandahar, Emirate of Herat, Khanate of Kunduz, Maymana Khanate, and numerous other warring polities. The most prominent state was the Emirate of Kabul, ruled by Das Muhammad Khan. With the collapse of the Durrani Empire and the exile of the Sadazai dynasty to be left to rule in Herat, Punjab and Kashmir were lost to Ranjit Singh, ruler of the Sikh Empire, who invaded Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in March 1823 and captured the city of Peshawar following the Battle of Nowshera. In 1834, Das Muhammad Khan led numerous campaigns, firstly campaigning to Jalalabad, and then allying with his rival brothers in Kandahar to defeat Shah Shuja Durrani and the British in the expedition of Shuja ul-Mulk. In 1837, Das Muhammad Khan attempted to conquer Peshawar and sent a large force under his son Wazir Akbar Khan, leading to the Battle of Jamrud. Akbar Khan and the Afghan army failed to capture the Jamrud fort from the Sikh Khalsa army, but killed Sikh commander Hari Singh Nalwa, thus ending the Afghan-Sikh wars. By this time, the British were advancing from the east, capitalizing on the decline of the Sikh Empire after it had its own period of turbulence following the death of Ranjit Singh, which engaged the Emirate of Kabul in the first major conflict during the Great Game. In 1839, a British expeditionary force marched into Afghanistan, invading the Principality of Kandahar, and in August 1839 seized Kabul. Das Muhammad Khan defeated the British in the Parwan campaign, but surrendered following his victory. He was replaced with the former Durrani ruler Shah Shuja Durrani as the new ruler of Kabul, a de facto puppet of the British. Following an uprising that saw the assassination of Shah Shuja, the 1842 retreat from Kabul of British Indian forces, and the annihilation of Elphinstone's army, and the punitive expedition of the Battle of Kabul that led to its sacking, the British gave up on their attempts to try to subjugate Afghanistan, allowing Das Muhammad Khan to return as ruler. Following this, Das Muhammad pursued a myriad of campaigns to unite most of Afghanistan in his reign, launching numerous incursions, including against the surrounding states such as the Hazarajat campaign, the conquest of Balkh, the conquest of Kunduz, and the conquest of Kandahar. Dost Muhammad led his final campaign against Herat, conquering it and reuniting Afghanistan. During his campaigns of reunification, he held friendly relations with the British despite the First Anglo-Afghan War and affirmed their status in the Second Anglo-Afghan Treaty of 1857, while Bokhara and internal religious leaders pressured Dost Muhammad to invade India during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. Dost Muhammad died in June 1863, a few weeks after his successful campaign to Herat. Following his death, a civil war ensued among his sons, prominently Muhammad Afzal Khan, Muhammad Azam Khan, and Sher Ali Khan. Sher Ali won the resulting Afghan Civil War, 1863 to 1869, and ruled Afghanistan until his death in 1879. In his final years, the British returned to Afghanistan in the Second Anglo-Afghan War to fight perceived Russian influence in the region. Sher Ali retreated to northern Afghanistan, intending to create a resistance there similar to his predecessors, Dost Muhammad Khan and Wazir Akbar Khan. His untimely death, however, resulted in Yaqub Khan being declared the new emir, leading to Britain gaining control of Afghanistan's foreign relations as part of the Treaty of Gandamak of 1879, making it an official British protected state. An uprising, however, restarted the conflict, and Yaqub Khan was deposed. During this tumultuous period, Abdur Rahman Khan began his rise to power, becoming an eligible candidate to become emir after he seized much of northern Afghanistan. Abdur Rahman marched on Kabul and was declared emir, being recognized by the British as well. Another uprising by Ayub Khan threatened the British, where rebels confronted and defeated British forces in the Battle of Maiwand. Following up on his victory, Ayub Khan unsuccessfully besieged Kandahar, and his decisive defeat saw the end of the Second Anglo-Afghan War, with Abdur Rahman secured firmly as emir. In 1893, Abdur Rahman signed an agreement in which the ethnic Pashtun and Baloch territories were divided by the Durand Line, which forms the modern-day border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Shia-dominated Hazarajat and pagan Kafiristan remained politically independent until being conquered by Abdur Rahman Khan in 1891 to 1896. He was known as the Iron Emir for his features and his ruthless methods against tribes. He died in 1901, succeeded by his son, Habibullah Khan. How can a small power like Afghanistan, which is like a goat between these lions, Britain and Russia, or a grain of wheat between two strong millstones of the grinding mill, stand in the midway of the stones without being ground to dust? Abdur Rahman Khan, the Iron Emir, in 1900. During the First World War, when Afghanistan was neutral, Habibullah Khan was met by officials of the Central Powers in the Niedermeyer Hintig expedition. They called on Afghanistan to declare full independence from the United Kingdom, join them, and attack British India as part of the Hindu-German conspiracy. The effort to bring Afghanistan into the Central Powers failed, but it sparked discontent among the population about maintaining neutrality with the British. Habibullah was assassinated in February 1919, and Amanullah Khan eventually assumed power. A staunch supporter of the 1915 to 1916 expeditions, Amanullah Khan invaded British India, beginning the Third Anglo-Afghan War and entering British India via the Khyber Pass. Following the end of the Third Anglo-Afghan War and the signing of the Treaty of Rawalpindi on August 19, 1919, Emir Amanullah Khan declared the Emirate of Afghanistan a sovereign and fully independent state. He moved to end his country's traditional isolation by establishing diplomatic relations with the international community, particularly with the Soviet Union and the Weimar Republic. He proclaimed himself king of Afghanistan on June 9, 1926, forming the Kingdom of Afghanistan. He introduced several reforms intended to modernize his nation. A key force behind these reforms was Mahmud Tarzi, an ardent supporter of the education of women. He fought for Article 68 of Afghanistan's 1923 Constitution, which implemented compulsory elementary education. Slavery was abolished in 1923. King Amanullah's wife, Queen Soraya, was an important figure during this period in the fight for women's education and against their oppression. Some of the reforms, such as the abolition of the traditional burqa for women and the opening of coeducational schools, alienated many tribal and religious leaders, leading to the Afghan Civil War, 1928 to 1929. King Amanullah abdicated in January 1929, and soon after Kabul fell to Saqqawi's forces led by Habibullah Kalakani. Muhammad Nadir Shah, Amanullah's cousin, defeated and killed Kalakani in October 1929 and was declared King Nadir Shah. He abandoned the reforms of King Amanullah in favor of a more gradual approach to modernization, but was assassinated in 1933 by Abdul Khalik. Muhammad Zahir Shah succeeded to the throne and reigned as king from 1933 to 1973. During the tribal revolts of 1944 to 1947, King Zahir's reign was challenged by Zadran, Safi, Mongol, and Wazir tribesmen led by Mazrak Zadran, Salmai, and Fakir of Ipi, among others, many of whom were Amanullah loyalists. Afghanistan joined the League of Nations in 1934. In the 1930s, the country experienced significant development of roads, infrastructure, the founding of a national bank, and increased education. Road links in the north played a large part in a growing cotton and textile industry. The country built close relationships with the Axis powers, with Nazi Germany having the largest share in Afghan development at the time. Until 1946, King Zahir ruled with the assistance of his uncle, who held the post of prime minister and continued the policies of Nadir Shah. Another uncle, Shah Mahmud Khan, became prime minister in 1946 and experimented with allowing greater political freedom. He was replaced in 1953 by Muhammad Daud Khan, a Pashtun nationalist who sought the creation of a Pashtunistan, leading to highly tense relations with Pakistan. Daud Khan pressed for social modernization reforms and sought a closer relationship with the Soviet Union. Afterward, the 1964 Constitution was formed and the first non-royal prime minister was sworn in. Zahir Shah, like his father Nadir Shah, had a policy of maintaining national independence while pursuing gradual modernization, creating nationalist feeling and improving relations with the United Kingdom. Afghanistan was neither a participant in World War II nor aligned with either power bloc in the Cold War. However, it was a beneficiary of the latter rivalry, as both the Soviet Union and the United States vied for influence by building Afghanistan's main highways, airports, and other vital infrastructure. On a per capita basis, Afghanistan received more Soviet development aid than any other country. In 1973, while the king was in Italy, Daud Khan launched a bloodless coup and became the first president of Afghanistan, abolishing the monarchy. Democratic Republic and Soviet War. In April 1978, the Communist People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, PPA, seized power in a bloody coup d'etat against then-President Mohammad Daud Khan in what is called the Soor Revolution. The PDPA declared the establishment of the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan, with its first leader named as People's Democratic Party General Secretary, Nur Muhammad Taraki. This would trigger a series of events that would dramatically turn Afghanistan from a peaceful, albeit poor and secluded, country to a hotbed of conflict and terrorism. The PDPA initiated various social, symbolic, and land distribution reforms that provoked strong opposition, while also brutally oppressing political dissidents. This caused unrest and quickly expanded into a state of civil war by 1979, waged by guerrilla mujahideen and smaller Maoist guerrillas against regime forces countrywide. It quickly turned into a proxy war as the Pakistani government provided these rebels with covert training centers. The United States supported them through Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, ISI, and the Soviet Union sent thousands of military advisors to support the PDPA regime. Meanwhile, there was increasingly hostile friction between the competing factions of the PDPA, the dominant Khalq and the more moderate Parkam. In October 1979, PDPA General Secretary Taraki was assassinated in an internal coup orchestrated by then-Prime Minister Hafizullah Amin, who became the new General Secretary of the PDPA. The situation in the country deteriorated under Amin, and thousands of people went missing. Displeased with Amin's government, the Soviet army invaded the country in December 1979, heading for Kabul and killing Amin. A Soviet-organized regime led by Parcham's Bubrik Karmal, but inclusive of both factions, Parkam and Kalk, filled the vacuum. Soviet troops in more substantial numbers were deployed to stabilize Afghanistan under Karmal, marking the beginning of the Soviet-Afghan War. Lasting 9 years, the war caused the deaths of between 562,000 and 2 million Afghans and displaced about 6 million people who subsequently fled Afghanistan, mainly to Pakistan and Iran. Heavy air bombardment destroyed many countryside villages. Millions of landmines were planted, and some cities, such as Herat and Kandahar, were also damaged from bombardment. After the Soviet withdrawal, another civil war ensued until the communist regime under PPA leader Mohammad Najibullah collapsed in 1992. The Soviet-Afghan War had drastic social effects on Afghanistan. The militarization of society led to heavily armed police, private bodyguards, openly armed civil defense groups, and the like becoming the norm in Afghanistan for decades thereafter. The traditional power structure had shifted from the clergy, community elders, intelligentsia, and military in favor of powerful warlords. Post-Cold War conflict. Another civil war broke out after the creation of a dysfunctional coalition government between leaders of various Mujahideen factions. Amid a state of anarchy and factional infighting, various Mujahideen factions committed widespread rape, murder, and extortion, while Kabul was heavily bombarded and partially destroyed by the fighting. Several failed reconciliations and alliances occurred between different leaders. The Taliban emerged in September 1994 as a movement and militia of students, Talib, from Islamic madrasas schools in Pakistan, who soon had military support from Pakistan. Taking control of Kandahar city that year, they conquered more territories until finally driving out the government of Rabbani from Kabul in 1996, where they established an emirate. The Taliban were condemned internationally for the harsh enforcement of their interpretation of Islamic Sharia law, which resulted in the brutal treatment of many Afghans, especially women. During their rule, the Taliban and their allies committed massacres against Afghan civilians, denied UN food supplies to starving civilians, and conducted a policy of scorched earth, burning vast areas of fertile land and destroying tens of thousands of homes. After the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, Ahmad Shah Massoud and Abdul Rashid Dostum formed the Northern Alliance, later joined by others, to resist the Taliban. Dostum's forces were defeated by the Taliban during the battles of Mazar-i-Sharif in 1997 and 1998. Pakistan's Chief of Army Staff, Pervez Musharraf, began sending thousands of Pakistanis to help the Taliban defeat the Northern Alliance, the BY 2000. The Northern Alliance only controlled 10% of the territory, cornered in the northeast. On September 9, 2001, Massoud was assassinated by 2 Arab suicide attackers in Panjshir Valley. Around 400,000 Afghans died in internal conflicts between 1990 and 2001. U.S. invasion and the Islamic Republic. In October 2001, the United States invaded Afghanistan to remove the Taliban from power after they refused to hand over Osama bin Laden, the prime suspect of the September 11th attacks, who was a guest of the Taliban and was operating his al-Qaeda network in Afghanistan. The majority of Afghans supported the American invasion. During the initial invasion, U.S. and U.K. forces bombed al-Qaeda training camps, and later, in cooperation with the Northern Alliance, the Taliban regime came to an end. In December 2001, after the Taliban government was overthrown, the Afghan interim administration under Hamid Karzai was formed. The International Security Assistance Force, ISAF, was established by the United Nations Security Council to assist the Karzai administration and provide basic security. By this time, after 2 decades of war, as well as an acute famine at the time, Afghanistan had one of the highest infant and child mortality rates in the world, the lowest life expectancy. Much of the population suffered from hunger and malnutrition, and infrastructure was in ruins. Many foreign donors started providing aid and assistance to rebuild the war-torn country. AS coalition troops entered Afghanistan to help the rebuilding process. The Taliban began an insurgency to regain control. Afghanistan remained one of the poorest countries in the world because of a lack of foreign investment, government corruption, and the Taliban insurgency. The Afghan government was able to establish some democratic structures, adopting a constitution in 2004 with the name Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Attempts were made, often with the support of foreign donor countries, to improve the country's economy, healthcare, education, transport, and agriculture. ISAF forces also began to train the Afghan National Security Forces. Following 2002, nearly 5 million Afghans were repatriated. The number of NATO troops present in Afghanistan peaked at 140,000 in 2011, dropping to approximately 16,000 in 2018. In September 2014, Ashraf Ghani became president after the 2014 Afghan presidential election, in which, for the first time in Afghanistan's history, power was democratically transferred, and on December 28, 2014, NATO formally ended ISAF combat operations and transferred full security responsibility to the Afghan government. The NATO-led Operation Resolute Support was formed the same day as a successor to ISAF. Thousands of NATO troops remained in the country to train and advise Afghan government forces and continue their fight against the Taliban. That a report titled Body Count concluded that 106,000 to 170,000 civilians have been killed as a result of the fighting in Afghanistan at the hands of all parties to the conflict. On February 19, 2020, the United States Taliban deal was made in Qatar. The deal was one of the critical events that caused the collapse of the Afghan National Security Forces, ANSF. Following the signing of the deal, the U.S. dramatically reduced the number of air attacks and deprived the ANSF of a critical edge in fighting the Taliban insurgency, leading to the Taliban takeover of Kabul. Second Taliban-era NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg announced on April 14, 2021 that the alliance had agreed to start withdrawing its troops from Afghanistan by 1 May. Soon after NATO troops began withdrawing, the Taliban launched an offensive against the Afghan government and quickly advanced in front of collapsing Afghan government forces. The Taliban captured the capital city of Kabul on August 15, 2021, after regaining control over a vast majority of Afghanistan. Several foreign diplomats and Afghan government officials, including President Ashraf Ghani, were evacuated from the country, with many Afghan civilians attempting to flee along with them. On August 17, First Vice President Amrullah Saleh proclaimed himself caretaker president and announced the formation of an anti-Taliban front with a reported 6,000+ troops in the Panjshir Valley, along with Ahmad Massoud. However, by September 6th, the Taliban had taken control of most of Panjshir province, with resistance fighters retreating to the mountains. Clashes in the valley ceased in mid-September. The NATO-led Operation Resolute Support was formed the same day as a successor to ISAF. Thousands of NATO troops remained in the country to train and advise Afghan government forces and continue their fight against the Taliban. That a report titled Body Count concluded that 106,000 to 170,000 civilians have been killed as a result of the fighting in Afghanistan at the hands of all parties to the conflict. According to the Costs of War Project, 176,000 people were killed in the conflict, including 46,319 civilians. Between 2001 and 2021, that according to the Uppsala Conflict Data Program, at least 212,191 people were killed in the conflict. Though the state of war in the country ended in 2021, armed conflict persists in some regions amid fighting between the Taliban and the local branch of the Islamic State, as well as an anti-Taliban Republican insurgency. The Taliban government is led by Supreme Leader Hibatullah Akhundzada and Acting Prime Minister Hassan Akhund, who took office on 7 September 2021. Akhund is one of the 4 founders of the Taliban and was a deputy prime minister of the previous emirate. His appointment was seen as a compromise between moderates and hardliners that a new, all-male cabinet was formed, which included Abdul Hakim Haqqani as Minister of Justice. On September 20, 2021, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres received a letter from Acting Minister of Foreign Affairs Amir Khan Muttaqi to formally claim Afghanistan's seat as a member state for their official spokesman in Doha. Suhail Shaheen. The United Nations did not recognize the previous Taliban government and chose to work with the then government in exile instead. Western nations suspended most of their humanitarian aid to Afghanistan following the Taliban's August 2021 takeover of the country. The World Bank and International Monetary Fund also halted their payments. More than half of Afghanistan's 39 million people faced an acute food shortage in October 2021. Human Rights Watch reported on November 11th, 2021, that Afghanistan was facing widespread famine due to an economic and banking crisis. The Taliban have significantly tackled corruption, improving on the Corruption Perceptions Index from 174th to 150th best out of 180 countries from 2021 to 2022, but dropping to 162nd in 2023. The Taliban have also reportedly reduced bribery and extortion in public service areas. At the same time, the human rights situation in the country has deteriorated. Following the 2001 invasion, more than 5.7 million refugees returned to Afghanistan. However, in 2021, 2.6 million Afghans remained refugees, primarily in Iran and Pakistan, and another 4 million were internally displaced. In October 2023, the Pakistani government ordered the expulsion of Afghans from Pakistan. Iran also decided to deport Afghan nationals back to Afghanistan. Taliban authorities condemned the deportations of Afghans as an inhuman act. Afghanistan faced a humanitarian crisis in late 2023. On November 10, 2024, Afghanistan's foreign ministry confirmed that Taliban representatives would attend the 2024 United Nations Climate Change Conference, marking the first time the country participated since the Taliban's return to power in 2021. Afghanistan had been barred from previous summits due to the lack of global recognition of the Taliban regime. In May 2025, Iran ordered the mass deportation of an estimated 4 million Afghan migrants and refugees. Geography. Afghanistan is located in southern Central Asia. The region centered in Afghanistan is considered the crossroads of Asia, and the country has had the nickname Heart of Asia. The renowned Urdu poet Allama Iqbal once wrote about the country. Asia is a body of water and earth, of which the Afghan nation is the heart. From its discord, the discord of Asia, and from its accord, the accord of Asia. At over 652,864 square kilometers, Afghanistan is the world's 41st largest country. It is slightly bigger than France and smaller than Myanmar, and about the size of Texas in the United States. There is no coastline, as Afghanistan is landlocked. Afghanistan shares its longest land border, the Durand Line, with Pakistan to the east and south, followed by borders with Tajikistan to the northeast, Iran to the west, Turkmenistan to the northwest, Uzbekistan to the north, and China to the far northeast. India recognizes a border with Afghanistan through Pakistani-administered Kashmir. Clockwise from southwest, Afghanistan shares borders with the Sistan and Balochistan province, South Khorasan province, and Razavi-Khorasan province of Iran. Ahal region, Mary region, and Lebup region of Turkmenistan, Surkh-Sindario region of Uzbekistan, Katlan region, and Gorno-Badakhshan autonomous region of Tajikistan, East Turkestan Uyghur autonomous region of China, and the Gilgit-Baltistan territory, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and Balochistan province of Pakistan. Geography. Afghanistan is located in southern Central Asia. The region centered in Afghanistan is considered the crossroads of Asia, and the country has had the nickname Heart of Asia. The renowned Urdu poet Allama Iqbal once wrote about the country. Asia is a body of water and earth, of which the Afghan nation is the heart. From its discord, the discord of Asia, and from its accord, the accord of Asia. At over 652,864 square kilometers, Afghanistan is the world's 41st largest country. It is slightly bigger than France and smaller than Myanmar, and about the size of Texas in the United States. There is no coastline, as Afghanistan is landlocked. The geography in Afghanistan is varied, but is mostly mountainous and rugged, with some unusual mountain ridges accompanied by plateaus and river basins. It is dominated by the Hindu Kush Range, the western extension of the Himalayas that stretches to eastern Tibet via the Pamir Mountains and Karakoram Mountains in Afghanistan's far northeast. Most of the highest points are in the east, consisting of fertile mountain valleys, often considered part of the roof of the world. The Hindu Kush ends at the west-central highlands, creating plains in the north and southwest, namely the Turkestan Plains and the Sistan Basin. These two regions consist of rolling grasslands and semi-deserts, as well as hot, windy deserts, respectively. Forests exist in the corridor between the provinces of Nuristan and Paktika, sea East Afghan, montane conifer forests, and tundra in the northeast. The country's highest point is Nashak at 7,492 meters, 24,580 feet above sea level. The lowest point is located in Jowzjan province along the Amu River bank at 258 meters, 846 feet above sea level. Despite having numerous rivers and reservoirs, large parts of the country are dry. The Indo-Sistan Basin is one of the world's driest regions. The Amu Darya rises in the north of the Hindu Kush, while the nearby Hari River flows west towards Herat, and the Arghandab River flows from the central region southwards. To the south and west of the Hindu Kush flow a number of streams that are tributaries of the Indus River, such as the Helmand River. The Kabul River flows in an easterly direction to the Indus, ending at the Indian Ocean. Afghanistan receives heavy snow during the winter in the Hindu Kush and Pamir Mountains, and the melting snow in the spring season enters the rivers, lakes, and streams. However, two-thirds of the country's water flows into the neighboring countries of Iran, Pakistan, and Turkmenistan. As reported in 2010, the state needs more than $2 billion to rehabilitate its irrigation systems so that the water is properly managed. In Afghanistan, forest cover accounts for approximately 2% of the total land area, equivalent to 1,208,440 hectares (ha) of forest in 2020, which remained unchanged since 1990. Of a naturally regenerating forest, 0% was reported to be primary forest, consisting of native tree species with no clearly visible indications of human activity, and around 0% of the forest area was found within protected areas. For the year 2015, 100% of the forest area was reported to be under public ownership. The northeastern Hindu Kush mountain range, located in and around the Badakhshan province of Afghanistan, is situated in a geologically active area where earthquakes occur almost every year. They can be deadly and destructive, causing landslides in some parts or avalanches during the winter. In June 2022, a destructive 5.9 earthquake struck near the border with Pakistan, killing at least 1,150 people and sparking fears of a major humanitarian crisis. On October 7, 2023, a 6.3 magnitude earthquake struck northwest of Herat, killing over 1,400 people. Climate. Afghanistan has a continental climate with harsh winters in the central highlands, the glaciated northeast around Nuristan, and the Wakhan Corridor, where the average temperature in January is below -15 degrees Celsius 5 degrees Fahrenheit and can reach -26 degrees C, -15 degrees Fahrenheit, and hot summers in the low-lying areas of the Sistan Basin of the southwest, the Jalalabad Basin in the east, and the Turkestan Plains along the Amu River in the north, where temperatures average over 35 degrees Celsius 95 degrees Fahrenheit in July, and can go over 43 degrees Celsius 109 degrees Fahrenheit. The country is generally arid in the summers, with most rainfall falling between December and April. The lower areas of northern and western Afghanistan are the driest, with precipitation more common in the east. Although proximate to India, Afghanistan is mostly outside the monsoon zone, except the Nuristan province, which occasionally receives summer monsoon rain. Although Afghanistan has contributed minimally to global greenhouse gas emissions, it is one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change and least prepared to cope with its impacts. Climate change in Afghanistan is causing more frequent and severe droughts. Severe drought conditions affect 25 of the country's 34 provinces, impacting over half the population. These droughts cause desertification, reduce food and water security, disrupt agriculture, and cause internal displacement. Extreme Rainfall over short periods is also more likely, increasing the risk of floods and landslides. Due to rising temperatures, almost 14% of Afghanistan's glacier coverage was lost between 1990 and 2015, increasing the risk of glacial lake outburst floods. By 2050, climate change could displace an additional 5 million people within Afghanistan. Although proximate to India, Afghanistan is mostly outside the monsoon zone, except the Nuristan province, which occasionally receives summer monsoon rain. Biodiversity. Several types of mammals exist throughout Afghanistan. Snow leopards, Siberian tigers, and brown bears live in the high-elevation alpine tundra regions. The Marco Polo sheep exclusively live in the Wakhan Corridor region of northeast Afghanistan. Foxes, wolves, otters, deer, wild sheep, lynx, and other big cats populate the mountain forest region of the east. In the semi-desert northern plains, wildlife include a variety of birds, hedgehogs, gophers, and large carnivores such as jackals and hyenas. Gazelles, wild pigs, and jackals populate the steppe plains of the south and west, while mongoose and cheetahs exist in the semi-desert south. Marmots and ibex also live in the high mountains of Afghanistan, and pheasants exist in some parts of the country. The Afghan hound is a native breed of dog known for its fast speed and its long hair. It is relatively known in the West. Endemic fauna of Afghanistan includes the Afghan flying squirrel, Afghan snowfinch, Pterodactylodon, or the Pagman mountain salamander. Stigmella casei, Vulcanella cabulensis, Afghan leopard gecko, Willeria parviflorelis, among others. Endemic flora include Iris afghanica. Afghanistan has a wide variety of birds despite its relatively arid climate. An estimated 460 species, of which 235 breed within. The forest region of Afghanistan has vegetation such as pine trees, spruce trees, fir trees, and larches, whereas the steppe grassland regions consist of broadleaf trees, short grass, perennial plants, and shrublands. The colder high-elevation regions are composed of hardy grasses and small flowering plants. Several regions are designated protected areas. There are 3 national parks: Bandi Amir, Wakhan, and Nuristan. Afghanistan had a 2018 Forest Landscape Integrity Index mean score of 8.85/10, ranking it 15th globally out of 172 countries. Government and politics. Following the effective collapse of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan during the 2021 Taliban offensive, the Taliban declared the country an Islamic emirate. A new caretaker government was announced on 7 September AS of July 2025. Only the Russian Federation has recognized the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan as the de jure government of Afghanistan. According to the VDEM Democracy Indices, Afghanistan in 2023 was the 3rd least electoral democratic country in Asia. A traditional instrument of governance in Afghanistan is the Loya Jirga, Grand Assembly, a Pashtun consultative meeting that was mainly organized for choosing a new head of state, adopting a new constitution, or to settle national or regional issues such as war. Loya Jirgas have been held since at least 1747, with the most recent one occurring from June to July 2022. Development of Taliban government on August 17, 2021. The leader of the Taliban-affiliated Hezb-e-Islami Gulbuddin Party, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, met with both Hamid Karzai, the former president of Afghanistan, and Abdullah Abdullah, the former chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation and former chief executive, in Doha, Qatar, with the aim of forming a national unity government. President Ashraf Ghani, having fled the country during the Taliban advance to either Tajikistan or Uzbekistan, emerged in the United Arab Emirates and said that he supported such negotiations and was in talks to return to Afghanistan. Many figures within the Taliban generally agreed that continuation of the 2004 Constitution of Afghanistan may, if correctly applied, be workable as the basis for the new religious state, as their objections to the former government were political and not religious. A new caretaker government was announced on 7 September AS of July 2025. Only the Russian Federation has recognized the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan as the de jure government of Afghanistan. According to the VDAM Democracy Indices, Afghanistan in 2023 was the third least electoral democratic country in Asia. A traditional instrument of governance in Afghanistan is the Loya Jirga Grand Assembly, a Pashtun consultative meeting that was mainly organized for choosing a new head of state, adopting a new constitution, or to settle national or regional issues such as war. Loya Jirgas have been held since at least 1747, with the most recent one occurring from June to July 2022. Hours after the final flight of American troops left Kabul on August 30th, a Taliban official interviewed said that a new government would likely be announced as early as Friday, September 3rd, after Jumu'ah. It was added that Hibatullah Akhundzada would be officially named Emir, with cabinet ministers being revealed at the ARG in an official ceremony. Abdul Ghani Baradar would be named head of government as prime minister, while other important positions would go to Sirajuddin Haqqani and Mullah Yaqub. Beneath the supreme leader, day-to-day governance will be entrusted to the cabinet. In a report by CNN News 18, sources said the new government was going to be governed similarly to Iran, with Hibatullah Akhundzada as supreme leader similar to the role of Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and would be based out of Kandahar. Baradar or Yaqub would be head of government as prime minister. The government's ministries and agencies will be under a cabinet presided over by the prime minister. The supreme leader would preside over an executive body known as the Supreme Council with anywhere from 11 to 72 members. Abdul Hakim Haqqani is likely to be promoted to Chief Justice. According to the report, the new government will take place within the framework of an amended 1964 Constitution of Afghanistan. Government formation was delayed due to concerns about forming a broad-based government acceptable to the international community. That IT was later added, however, that the Taliban's Robbery Shura. The group's leadership council was divided between the hardline Haqqani network and moderate Abdul Ghani Baradar over appointments needed to form an inclusive government. Reports claim that this culminated in a skirmish which led to Baradar being injured and treated in Pakistan. However, this was denied by Baradar himself. As of early September 2021, the Taliban were planning the cabinet to be men only. Journalists and other human rights activists, mostly women, protested in Herat and Kabul, calling for women to be included. 318, the acting cabinet announced on September 7th was men only, and the Ministry of Women's Affairs was abolished. As of July 2025, only Russia has recognized the Taliban government as the legitimate authorities of Afghanistan. The UN has stated that recognition was impossible so long as restrictions on female education and employment remained. That on September 16, 2024, the Taliban suspended polio vaccination campaigns in Afghanistan, as reported by the United Nations, posing a significant risk to global polio eradication efforts. That in a decree by Hibatullah Akhundzada on August 15th, the description of the government as interim was dropped, with all ministers remaining in their posts, but on a permanent rather than acting basis. Administrative divisions. Afghanistan is administratively divided into 34 provinces, Walayat. Each province has a governor and a capital. The country is further divided into nearly 400 provincial districts, each of which normally covers a city or several villages. Each district is represented by a district governor. The provincial governors are now appointed by the Prime Minister of Afghanistan, and the district governors are selected by the provincial governors. The provincial governors are representatives of the central government in Kabul and are responsible for all administrative and formal issues within their provinces. There are also provincial councils that are elected through direct and general elections for 4 years. The functions of provincial councils are to take part in provincial development planning and to participate in the monitoring and appraisal of other provincial governance institutions. According to Article 140 of the Constitution and the Presidential Decree on Electoral Law, mayors of cities should be elected through free and direct elections for a 4-year term. In practice, however, mayors are appointed by the government. The 34 provinces in alphabetical order are Badakhshan, Bajis, Baghlan, Balkh, Bamiyan, Daykundi, Farah, Faryab, Ghazni Ghor, Helmand, Herat, Jowzjan, Kabul capital, Kandahar, Kapiza, Khost, Kunar, Kunduz, Lagman, Logar, Nangarhar, Nimruz, Nuristan, Orizgan, Paktia, Paktika, Panjshir, Parwan, Samangan, Saripol, Takar, Wardak. Zabul Foreign Relations Afghanistan became a member of the United Nations in 1946. Historically, Afghanistan had strong relations with Germany, one of the first countries to recognize Afghanistan's independence in 1919. The Soviet Union, which provided much aid in military training for Afghanistan's forces and includes the signing of a Treaty of Friendship in 1921 and 1978, and India, with which a friendship treaty was signed in 1950 to relations with Pakistan have often been tense for various reasons, such as the Durand Line border issue and alleged Pakistani involvement in Afghan insurgent groups. There are also provincial councils that are elected through direct and general elections for 4 years. The functions of provincial councils are to take part in provincial development planning and to participate in the monitoring and appraisal of other provincial governance institutions. According to Article 140 of the Constitution and the Presidential Decree on Electoral Law, mayors of cities should be elected through free and direct elections for a 4-year term. In practice, however, mayors are appointed by the government. The present Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is currently partially recognized, but has had notable unofficial ties with China, Pakistan, and Qatar. Under the previous Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, it enjoyed cordial relations with a number of NATO and allied nations, particularly the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, and Turkey. In 2012, the United States and the then Republic in Afghanistan signed their Strategic Partnership Agreement, in which Afghanistan became a major non-NATO ally. Such qualification was rescinded by U.S. President Joe Biden in July 2022. Military. The armed forces of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan captured a large amount of weapons, hardware, vehicles, aircrafts, and equipment from the Afghan National Security Forces following the 2021 Taliban offensive and the fall of Kabul. The total value of the captured equipment has been estimated at $83 billion. Human rights. Homosexuality is taboo in Afghan society. According to the Penal Code, homosexual intimacy is punished by up to a year in prison. Under Sharia law, offenders can be punished by death. However, an ancient tradition involving male homosexual acts between children and older men, typically wealthy warlords or elite people, called Bacha Batsi persists. Religious minorities such as Sikhs, Hindus, and Christians have reportedly faced persecution. Since May 2022, all women in Afghanistan have been required by law to wear full body coverings when in public, either a burqa or an abaya paired with a niqab, which leaves only the eyes uncovered. First Deputy Leader Surjan Haqqani claimed the decree is only advisory and no form of hijab is compulsory in Afghanistan. Though this contradicts the reality that it has been speculated that there is a genuine internal policy division over women's rights between hardliners, including Leader Hibatullah, Akhundzada, and pragmatists, though they publicly present a united front. Another decree was issued shortly after the first, requiring female TV presenters to cover their faces during broadcasts. Since the Taliban takeover, suicides among women have become more common, and the country could now be one of the few where the rate of suicide among women surpasses that among men. Religious minorities such as Sikhs, Hindus, and Christians have reportedly faced persecution. In May 2022, the Taliban dissolved Afghanistan's Human Rights Commission along with 4 other government departments, citing the country's budget deficit. In January 2025, the International Criminal Court issued 2 warrants against the Taliban Supreme Leader Hibatullah Akhundzada and the Chief Judge, Abdul Hakim Haqqani, for committing crimes against humanity with the oppression and persecution of Afghan women and girls, and deprived of their freedom of movement, the rights to control their bodies, to education, and to a private and family life. While the alleged resistance and opposition were brutally suppressed with murder, imprisonment, torture, rape, and other forms of sexual violence since 2021. ICC member states are obliged to arrest wanted persons if they are on their territory. Economy. Afghanistan's nominal GDP was $20.1 billion in 2020, or $81 billion by purchasing power parity, PPP. Its GDP per capita is $2,459, PPP, and $611 by nominal, $355, despite having $1 trillion or more in mineral deposits. It remains one of the world's least developed countries. Afghanistan's rough physical geography and its landlocked status has been cited as reasons why the country has always been among the least developed in the modern era, a factor where progress is also slowed by contemporary conflict and political instability. The country imports over $7 billion worth of goods, but exports only $784 million, mainly fruits and nuts. It has $2.8 billion in external debt. The service sector contributed the most to the GDP, 55.9%, followed by agriculture, 23%, and industry, 21.1%. The Afghanistan Bank serves as the central bank of the nation, and the Afghani, FN, is the national currency, with an exchange rate of about 75 Afghanis to $1, but a number of local and foreign banks operate in the country, including the Afghanistan International Bank, New Kabul Bank, Aziza Bank, Pashani Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, and the First Microfinance Bank. In 2010, one of the main drivers for the economic recovery was the return of over 5 million expatriates, who brought with them entrepreneurship and wealth-creating skills, as well as much-needed funds to start up businesses. Many Afghans got involved in construction, which was one of the largest industries in the country at the time. Some of the major national construction projects include the $35 billion new Kabul city next to the capital, the Aino Mina project in Kandahar, and the Ghazi Amanullah Khan town near Jalalabad. Similar development projects have also begun in Herat, Mazar-e-Sharif, and other cities. An estimated 400,000 people enter the labor market each year. Several small companies and factories began operating in different parts of the country, which not only provide revenues to the government, but also create new jobs. Improvements to the business environment have resulted in more than $1.5 billion in telecom investment and created more than 100,000 jobs since 2003. Afghan rugs are becoming popular again, allowing many carpet dealers around the country to hire more workers. In 2016 to 17, it was the fourth most exported group of items. Afghanistan is a member of WTO, SAARC, ECO, and OIC. It holds an observer status in SCO. In 2018, a majority of imports come from either Iran, China, Pakistan, and Kazakhstan, while 84% of exports are to Pakistan and India. Since the Taliban's takeover of the country in August 2021, the United States has frozen about $9 billion in assets belonging to the Afghan central bank, blocking the Taliban from accessing billions of dollars held in U.S. bank accounts. The GDP of Afghanistan is estimated to have dropped by 20% following the Taliban return to power. Following this, after months of free fall, the Afghan economy began stabilizing as a result of the Taliban's restrictions on smuggled imports, limits on banking transactions, and UN aid. In 2023, the Afghan economy began seeing signs of revival. This has also been followed by stable exchange rates, low inflation, stable revenue collection, and the rise of trade in exports. In the third quarter of 2023, the Afghani rose to be the best performing currency in the world, climbing over 9% against the US dollar. Agriculture. Agricultural production is the backbone of Afghanistan's economy and has traditionally dominated the economy, employing about 40% of the workforce as of 2018. The country is known for producing pomegranates, grapes, apricots, melons, and several other fresh and dry fruits. Afghanistan also became the world's top producer of cannabis in 2010 in March 2023. However, cannabis production was banned by a decree from Hibatullah Akhundzada. Saffron, the most expensive spice, grows in Afghanistan, particularly Herat province. In recent years, there has been an uptick in saffron production, which authorities and farmers are using to try to replace poppy cultivation. Between 2012 and 2019, the saffron cultivated and produced in Afghanistan was consecutively ranked the world's best by the International Taste and Quality Institute. Production hit record high in 2019, 19,469 kilograms of saffron. And 1 kilogram is sold domestically between $634 and $1,147. The availability of cheap diesel-powered water pumps imported from China and Pakistan, and in the 2010s, of cheap solar power to pump water, resulted in expansion of agriculture and population in the southwestern deserts of Afghanistan and Kandahar, Helmand, and Nimruz provinces in the 2010s. Wells have gradually been deepened, but water resources are limited. Opium is the major crop, but as of 2022, was under attack by the new Taliban government, which, to suppress opium production, was systematically suppressing water pumping. In a 2023 report, poppy cultivation in southern Afghanistan was reduced by over 80% as a result of Taliban campaigns to stop its use toward opium. This included a 99% reduction of opium growth in the Helmand province. In November 2023, a UDID report showed that in the entirety of Afghanistan, poppy cultivation dropped by over 95%, removing it from its place as being the world's largest opium producer. Mining. The country's natural resources include coal, copper, iron or lithium, uranium, rare earth elements, chromite, gold, zinc, talc, barite, sulfur, lead, marble, precious and semi-precious stones, natural gas, and petroleum. In 2010, U.S. and Afghan government officials estimated that untapped mineral deposits located in 2007 by the U.S. Geological Survey are worth at least $1 trillion. Michael E. O'Hanlon of the Brookings Institution estimated that if Afghanistan generates about $10 billion per year from its mineral deposits, its gross national product would double and provide long-term funding for critical needs. The United States Geological Survey, USGS, estimated in 2006 that northern Afghanistan has an average 460 million cubic meters, 2.9 billion BBL of crude oil for 140 billion cubic meters, 15.7 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, and 67 billion L, 562 million US BBL of natural gas liquids. In 2011, Afghanistan signed an oil exploration contract with China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC, for the development of 3 oil fields along the Amu Darya River in north. The country has significant amounts of lithium, copper, gold, coal, iron, ore, and other minerals. The Khanishan carbonatite in Helmand province contains 1 million tons, 980,000 long tons, 1,100,000 short tons of rare earth elements. In 2007, a 30-year lease was granted for the Anak copper mine to the China Metallurgical Group for $3 billion, making it the biggest foreign investment and private business venture in Afghanistan's history. The state-run Steel Authority of India won the mining rights to develop the huge Hajigak iron ore deposit in central Afghanistan. Government officials estimate that 30% of the country's untapped mineral deposits are worth at least $1 trillion. One official asserted that this will become the backbone of the Afghan economy, and a Pentagon memo stated that Afghanistan could become the Saudi Arabia of lithium. The lithium reserves of 21 million tons could amount to the ones of Bolivia, which is currently viewed as the country with the largest lithium reserves. Other larger deposits are the ones of bauxite and cobalt. Michael E. O'Hanlon of the Brookings Institution estimated that if Afghanistan generates about $10 billion per year from its mineral deposits, its gross national product would double and provide long-term funding for critical needs. The United States Geological Survey, USGS, estimated in 2006 that northern Afghanistan has an average 460 million cubic meters, 2.9 billion BBL, of crude oil for 140 billion cubic meters, 15.7 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, and 67 billion L, 562 million US BBL of natural gas liquids. In 2011, Afghanistan signed an oil exploration contract with China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC, for the development of 3 oil fields along the Amu Darya River in the north. Access to biocapacity in Afghanistan is lower than world average. In 2016, Afghanistan had 0.43 global hectares of biocapacity per person within its territory, much less than the world average of 1.6 global hectares per person. In 2016, Afghanistan used 0.73 global hectares of biocapacity per person. Their ecological footprint of consumption. This means they use just under double as much biocapacity as Afghanistan contains. As a result, Afghanistan is running a biocapacity deficit. In September 2023, the Taliban signed mining contracts worth $6.5 billion, with extractions based on gold, iron, lead, and zinc in the provinces of Herat, Ghor, Logar, and Takhar. Energy. According to the World Bank, 98% of the rural population have access to electricity in 2018, up from 28% in 2008. Overall, the figure stands at 98.7%. As of 2016, Afghanistan produces 1,400 megawatts of power, but still imports the majority of electricity via transmission lines from Iran and the Central Asian states. The majority of electricity production is via hydropower, helped by the amount of rivers and streams that flow from the mountains. However, electricity is not always reliable, and blackouts happen, including in Kabul. In recent years, an increasing number of solar, biomass, and wind power plants have been constructed. Currently under development are the Kasa 1000 project, which will transmit electricity from Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, and the Turkmenistan-Pakistan-India TAPI gas pipeline. Power is managed by the Afghanistan Breshna Shirkat, DABS, Afghanistan Electricity Company. In 2016, Afghanistan had 0.43 global hectares of biocapacity per person within its territory, much less than the world average of 1.6 global hectares per person. In 2016, Afghanistan used 0.73 global hectares of biocapacity per person. Their ecological footprint of consumption. This means they use just under double as much biocapacity as Afghanistan contains. As a result, Afghanistan is running a biocapacity deficit. In September 2023, the Taliban signed mining contracts worth $6.5 billion, with extractions based on gold, iron, lead, and zinc in the provinces of Herat, Ghor, Logar, and Takhar. Important dams include the Kajaki Dam, Dala Dam, and the Sardaban Dam. Tourism. Tourism is a small industry in Afghanistan due to security issues. Nevertheless, some 20,000 foreign tourists visit the country annually as of 2016. In particular, an important region for domestic and international tourism is the picturesque Bamiyan Valley, which includes lakes, canyons, and historical sites, helped by the fact it is in a safe area away from insurgent activity. Smaller numbers visit and trek in regions such as the Wakhan Valley, which is also one of the world's most remote communities. From the late 1960s onwards, Afghanistan was a popular stop on the famous hippie trail, attracting many Europeans and Americans. Coming from Iran, the trail traveled through various Afghan provinces and cities including Herat, Kandahar, and Kabul before crossing to northern Pakistan, northern India, and Nepal. Tourism peaked in 1977, the year before the start of political instability and armed conflict. The city of Ghazni has significant history and historical sites, and together with Bamiyan City have in recent years been voted Islamic Cultural Capital and South Asia Cultural Capital respectively. The cities of Herat, Kandahar, Balkh, and Zaranj are also very historic. The Minaret of Jam in the Hari River Valley is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. A cloak reputedly worn by Islam's Prophet Muhammad is kept in the Shrine of the Cloak in Kandahar, a city founded by Alexander the Great and the first capital of Afghanistan. The Citadel of Alexander in the western city of Herat has been renovated in recent years and is a popular attraction. In the north of the country is the Shrine of Ali, believed by many to be the location where Ali was buried. The National Museum of Afghanistan in Kabul hosts a large number of Buddhist, Bactrian Greek, and early Islamic antiquities. The museum suffered greatly by civil war, but has been slowly restoring since the early 2000s. Unexpectedly, tourism has seen improvement in Afghanistan following the Taliban takeover. Active efforts by the Taliban encouraged tourism to increase from 691 tourists in 2021 to 2,300 in 2022 to 5,200 in 2023, with some estimates of between 7,000 and 10,000. This is, however, threatened by the Islamic State, Khorasan province, who took responsibility for attacks on tourists. such as the 2024 Bamyan shooting. Communication. Telecommunication services in Afghanistan are provided by Afghan Telecom, Afghan Wireless, Etisalat, MTN Group, and Roshan. The country uses its own space satellite called AfghanSat-1, which provides services to millions of phone, internet, and television subscribers. By 2001, following years of civil war, telecommunications was virtually a non-existent sector, but by 2016, it had grown to a $2 billion industry, with 22 million mobile phone subscribers and 5 million internet users. The sector employs at least 120,000 people nationwide. Transportation. Due to Afghanistan's geography, transport between various parts of the country has historically been difficult. The backbone of Afghanistan's road network is Highway 1, often called the Ring Road, which extends for 2,210 kilometers, 1,370 miles, and connects 5 major cities, Kabul, Ghazni, Kandahar, Herat, and Mazar-i-Sharif, with spurs to Kunduz and Jalalabad and various border crossings, while skirting around the mountains of the Hindu Kush. The Ring Road is crucially important for domestic and international trade and the economy. A key portion of the Ring Road is the Salong Tunnel, completed in 1964, which facilitates travel through the Hindu Kush mountain range and connects northern and southern Afghanistan. IT is the only land route that connects Central Asia to the Indian subcontinent. Several mountain passes allow travel between the Hindu Kush and other areas. By 2001, following years of civil war, telecommunications was virtually a non-existent sector, but by 2016, it had grown to a $2 billion industry, with 22 million mobile phone subscribers and 5 million internet users. The sector employs at least 120,000 people nationwide. Transportation. Due to Afghanistan's geography, transport between various parts of the country has historically been difficult. Serious traffic accidents are common on Afghan roads and highways, particularly on the Kabul, Kandahar, and the Kabul-Jalalabad road. Traveling by bus in Afghanistan remains dangerous due to militant activities. Air transport in Afghanistan is provided by the national carrier Ariana Afghan Airlines and by the private company Cam Air. Airlines from a number of countries also provide flights in and out of the country. These include Air India, Emirates, Gulf Air, Iran Aceman Airlines, Pakistan International Airlines, and Turkish Airlines. The country has 4 international airports: Kabul International Airport, formerly Hamid Karzai International Airport, Kandahar International Airport, Herat International Airport, and Mazar-i-Sharif International Airport. Including domestic airports, there are 43. Bagram Air Base is a major military airfield. The country has 3 rail links. 1, a 75-kilometer, 47 miles, line from Mazar-i-Sharif to the Uzbekistan border, a 10-kilometer, 6.2 miles, long line from Toragundi to the Turkmenistan border, where it continues as part of Turkmen Railways, and a short link from Akaina across the Turkmen border to Kirki, which is planned to be extended further across Afghanistan. These lines are used for freight only, and there is no passenger service. A rail line between Kaf, Iran, and Herat, western Afghanistan, intended for both freight and passengers, was under construction as of 2019 at about 125 kilometers, 78 miles, of the line will lie on the Afghan side. Private vehicle ownership has increased substantially since the early 2000s. Taxis are yellow and consist of both cars and auto rickshaws. In rural Afghanistan, villagers often use donkeys, mules, or horses to transport or carry goods. Camels are primarily used by the Kochi nomads. Bicycles are popular throughout Afghanistan. Demographics. Population. The population of Afghanistan was estimated at 35.7 million as of 2024 by the Afghanistan National Statistics and Information Authority, whereas the UN estimates over 42.0 million. In 1979, the total population was reported to be about 15.5 million, but about 25.3% are urbanite. 70.4% live in rural areas, and the remaining 4.3% are nomadic. An additional 3 million or so Afghans are temporarily housed in neighboring Pakistan and Iran, most of whom were born and raised in those 2 countries. As of 2013, Afghanistan was the largest refugee-producing country in the world, a title held for 32 years. The current population growth rate is 2.37%, one of the highest in the world outside of Africa. This population is expected to reach 82 million by 2050 if current population trends continue. The population of Afghanistan increased steadily until the 1980s, when civil war caused millions to flee to other countries such as Pakistan. Millions have since returned, and the war conditions contribute to the country having the highest fertility rate outside Africa. Afghanistan's healthcare has recovered since the turn of the century, causing falls in infant mortality and increases in life expectancy. Although it has the lowest life expectancy of any country outside Africa. This, along with other factors such as returning refugees, caused rapid population growth in the 2000s that has only recently started to slow down. Citation needed, the Gini coefficient in 2008 was 27.8. Fertility rate. Afghanistan 2024 total fertility rate has been estimated at 4.4. In 2022, it was 4.5, about twice the world average rate. The rate has fallen since the early 1980s. Urbanization. As estimated by the CIA World Factbook, 26% of the population was urbanized as of 2020. This is one of the lowest figures in the world. In Asia, it is only higher than Cambodia, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. Urbanization has increased rapidly, particularly in the capital Kabul, due to returning refugees from Pakistan and Iran after 2001, internally displaced people, and rural migrants. Urbanization in Afghanistan is different from typical urbanization in that it is centered on just a few cities. Kabul is the largest city, with a population of 5 million. The other large cities are located generally in the ring around the Central Highlands, namely Kandahar in the south, Herat in the west, Mazar-i-Sharif, Kunduz in the north, and Jalalabad in the east. Ethnicity and languages. Afghans are divided into several ethno-linguistic groups. According to research data by several institutions in 2019, the Pashtun are the largest ethnic group, comprising 42%, followed by Tajiks, comprising 27% of the country's population. The other two major ethnic groups are the Hazaras and Uzbeks, each at 9%. A further 10 other ethnic groups are recognized and each are represented in the Afghan national anthem. Dari and Pashto are the official languages of Afghanistan. Bilingualism is very common. Dari, which is also referred to as Eastern Persian, as it is a variety of and mutually intelligible with Persian, and very often called Farsi by some Afghans like in Iran, functions as the lingua franca in Kabul as well as in much of the northern and northwestern parts of the country. Native speakers of Dari, of any ethnicity, are sometimes called Farsawans. Pashto is the native tongue of the Pashtun, although many of them are also fluent in Dari, while some non-Pashtun are fluent in Pashto. Despite the Pashtun having been dominant in Afghan politics for centuries, Dari remained the preferred language for government and bureaucracy. According to CIA World Factbook, Dari Persian is spoken by 78%, L1 plus L2, and functions as the lingua franca, while Pashto is spoken by 50%, Uzbek 10%, English 5%, Turkmen 2%, Urdu 2%, Pashto 1%, Nuristani 1%, Arabic 1%, and Balochi 1%, 2021 EST. Data represent the most widely spoken languages. Share some to more than 100% because there is much bilingualism in the country and because respondents were allowed to select more than one language. There are a number of smaller regional languages, including Uzbek, Turkmen, Balochi, Pashto, and Nuristani. When it comes to foreign languages among the populace, many are able to speak or understand Hindustani, Urdu Hindi, partly due to returning Afghan refugees from Pakistan and the popularity of Bollywood films respectively. English is also understood by some of the population and has been gaining popularity as of the 2000s that some Afghans retain some ability in Russian, which was taught in public schools during the 1980s. Religion. The CIA estimated in 2009 that 99.7% of the Afghan population was Muslim, and most are thought to adhere to the Sunni Hanafi school. According to Pew Research Center, As much as 90% are of the Sunni denomination, 7% Shia, and 3% non-denominational. The CIA Factbook variously estimates up to 89.7% Sunni or up to 15% Shia. Afghan Sikhs and Hindus are also found in certain major cities, namely Kabul, Jalalabad, Ghazni, Kandahar, accompanied by Gurdwaras and Mandars. According to Deutsche Welle in September 2021, 250 remain in the country after 67 were evacuated to India. There was a small Jewish community in Afghanistan, living mainly in Herat and Kabul. Over the years, this small community was forced to leave due to decades of warfare and religious persecution. When it comes to foreign languages among the populace, many are able to speak or understand Hindustani, Urdu Hindi, partly due to returning Afghan refugees from Pakistan and the popularity of Bollywood films respectively. English is also understood by some of the population and has been gaining popularity as of the 2000s. Some Afghans retained some ability in Russian, which was taught in public schools during the 1980s. By the end of the 20th century, nearly the entire community had emigrated to Israel and the United States, with one known exception, Herat-born Zablon Simitov. He remained for years, being the caretaker of the only remaining Afghan synagogue. He left the country for the U.S. after the second Taliban takeover. A woman who left shortly after him has since been identified as the likely last Jew in Afghanistan. Afghan Christians, who number 500 to 8,000, practice their faith secretly due to intense societal opposition, and there are no public churches. Education. Education in Afghanistan is overseen by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Higher Education. There are over 16,000 schools in the country and roughly 9 million students. Of this, about 60% are males and 40% females. However, the new regime has thus far forbidden female teachers and female students from returning to secondary schools. Over 174,000 students are enrolled in different universities around the country. About 21% of these are females. Former Education Minister Ghulam Farooq Wardak had stated that construction of 8,000 schools is required for the remaining children who are deprived of formal learning. As of 2018, the literacy rate of the population age 15 and older is 43.02%, males 55.48%, and females 29.81%. The top universities in Afghanistan are the American University of Afghanistan, AUEF, followed by Kabul University, KU, both of which are located in Kabul. The National Military Academy of Afghanistan, modeled after the United States Military Academy at West Point, was a 4-year military development institution dedicated to graduating officers for the Afghan armed forces. The Afghan Defense University was constructed near Karga in Kabul. Major universities outside of Kabul include Kandahar University in the south, Herat University in the northwest, Balkh University and Kunduz University in the north, Nangarhar University and Khost University in the east. After the Taliban regained power in 2021, it became unclear to what extent female education would continue in the country. In March 2022, after they had been closed for some time, it was announced that secondary education would be reopened shortly. However, shortly before reopening, the order was rescinded and schools for older girls remained closed. Despite the ban, 6 provinces, Balkh, Kunduz, Jowzjan, Saraipul, Faryab, and the Day Kundi, still allow girls' schools from grade 6 and up in December 2023. Investigations were being held by the United Nations on the claim that Afghan girls of all ages were allowed to study at religious schools. As of November 2024, some parts of the country allow women to attend religious schools to pursue dentistry, nursing, and other subjects. Health. According to the Human Development Index, Afghanistan is the 15th least developed country in the world. The average life expectancy is estimated to be around 60 years. The country's maternal mortality rate is 396 deaths/100,000 live births, and its infant mortality rate is 66 to 112.8 deaths in every 1,000 live births. The Ministry of Public Health plans to cut the infant mortality rate to 400 for every 100,000 live births before 2020. The country has more than 3,000 midwives, with an additional 300 to 400 being trained each year. There are over 100 hospitals in Afghanistan, with the most advanced treatments being available in Kabul. The French Medical Institute for Children and Indira Gandhi Children's Hospital in Kabul are the leading children's hospitals in the country. Some of the other leading hospitals in Kabul include the Jamhuriya Hospital and Jinnah Hospital. In spite of all this, many Afghans travel to Pakistan and India for advanced treatment. It was reported in 2006 that nearly 60% of the Afghan population lives within a 2-hour walk of the nearest health facility. The disability rate is also high in Afghanistan due to the decades of war. It was reported recently that about 80,000 people are missing limbs. Non-governmental charities such as Save the Children and Mahbuba's Promise assist orphans in association with governmental structures. Culture. Afghans have both common cultural features and those that differ between the regions of Afghanistan, each with distinctive cultures, partly as a result of geographic obstacles that divide the country. Family is the mainstay of Afghan society, and families are often headed by a patriarch in the southern and eastern region. The people live according to the Pashtun culture by following Pashtunwali, the Pashtun way. Key tenets of Pashtunwali include hospitality, the provision of sanctuary to those seeking refuge, and revenge for the shedding of blood. The Pashtun are largely connected to the culture of Central Asia and the Iranian plateau. The remaining Afghans are culturally Persian and Turkic. Some non-Pashtun who live in proximity with Pashtun have adopted Pashtunwali in a process called Pashtunization, while some Pashtun have been Persianized. Those who have lived in Pakistan and Iran over the last 30 years have been further influenced by the cultures of those neighboring nations. The Afghan people are known to be strongly religious. Afghans, particularly Pashtun, are noted for their tribal solidarity and high regard for personal honor. There are various Afghan tribes and an estimated 2 to 3 million nomads. Afghan culture is deeply Islamic, but pre-Islamic practices persist. Child marriage is prevalent. The legal age for marriage is 16. The most preferred marriage in Afghan society is to one's parallel cousin, and the groom is often expected to pay a bride price. In the villages, families typically occupy mud brick houses or compounds with mud brick or stone-walled houses. Villages typically have a headman, malik, a master for water distribution, mirab, and a religious teacher, mullah. Men would typically work on the fields, joined by women during harvest. About 15% of the population are nomadic, locally called kochis. When nomads pass villages, they often buy supplies such as tea, wheat, and kerosene from the villagers. Villagers buy wool and milk from the nomads. Afghan clothing for both men and women typically consists of various forms of shalwar kameez, especially Parahin Tunban and Kaith Pardug. Women would normally wear a chador for head covering. Some women, typically from highly conservative communities, wear the burqa, a full body covering. These were worn by some women of the Pashtun community well before Islam came to the region, but the Taliban enforced this dress on women when they were in power. Another popular dress is the chapan, which acts as a coat. The caracal is a hat made from the fur of a specific regional breed of sheep. It was favored by former kings of Afghanistan and became known to much of the world in the 21st century when it was constantly worn by President Hamid Karzai. The pakal is another traditional hat originating from the far east of the country. It was popularly worn by the guerrilla leader Ahmad Shah Massoud. The Mazari hat originates from northern Afghanistan. Architecture. The nation has a complex history that has survived either in its current cultures or in the form of various languages and monuments. Afghanistan contains many remnants from all ages, including Greek and Buddhist stupas, monasteries, monuments, temples, and Islamic minarets. Among the most well-known are the Great Mosque of Herat, the Bloom Mosque, the Minaret of Jam, the Chil Zina, the Kalai Bast and Lashkargah, the ancient Greek city of Iconium. However, many of its historic monuments have been damaged in modern times due to the civil wars. The two famous Buddhas of Bamiyan were destroyed by the Taliban, who regarded them as idolatrous. As there was no colonialism in the modern era in Afghanistan, European-style architecture is rare but does exist. The Victory Arch at Pagman and the Dar el-Aman Palace in Kabul were built in this style in the 1920s. Afghan architecture also ranges deep into India, such as the city of Agra and the tomb of Sher Shah Suri, an Afghan emperor of India. Art and ceramic carpet weaving is an ancient practice in Afghanistan, and many of these are still handmade by tribal and nomadic people today. Carpets have been produced in the region for thousands of years and traditionally done by women. Some crafters express their feelings through the designs of rugs. For example, after the outbreak of the Soviet-Afghan War, war rugs, a variant of Afghan rugs, were created with designs representing pain and misery caused by the conflict. Every province has its own specific characteristics in making rugs that in some of the Turkic-populated areas in the northwest. Bride and wedding ceremony prices are driven by the bride's weaving skills. As there was no colonialism in the modern era in Afghanistan, European-style architecture is rare but does exist. The Victory Arch at Pagman and the Dar el-Aman Palace in Kabul were built in this style in the 1920s. Pottery has been crafted in Afghanistan for millennia. The village of Istalif, north of Kabul, is in particular a major center, known for its unique turquoise and green pottery, and their methods of crafting have remained the same for centuries. Much of lapis lazuli stones were earthed in modern-day Afghanistan, which were used in Chinese porcelain as cobalt blue, later used in ancient Mesopotamia and Turkey. The lands of Afghanistan have a long history of art, with the world's earliest known usage of oil painting found in cave murals in the country. That a notable art style that developed in Afghanistan and eastern Pakistan is Gandhara art, produced by a fusion of Greco-Roman art and Buddhist art between the 1st and 7th centuries CE. Later eras saw increased use of the Persian miniature style, with Kamaluddin Behzad of Herat being one of the most notable miniature artists of the Timurid and early Safavid periods. Since the 1900s, the nation began to use Western techniques in art. Abdul Ghaffar Breshna was a prominent Afghan painter and sketch artist from Kabul during the 20th century. Literature. Classic Persian and Pashto poetry are a cherished part of Afghan culture. Poetry has always been one of the major educational pillars in the region, to the level that it has integrated itself into culture. One of the poetic styles is called Landay. A popular theme in Afghan folklore and mythology are divs, monstrous creatures. Thursdays are traditionally poetry night in the city of Herat when men, women, and children gather and recite both ancient and modern poems. 3 mystical authors are considered true national glories, although claimed with equal ardor by Iran, namely Khwaja Abdullah Ansari of Herat, a great mystic and Sufi saint in the 11th century, Sanai of Ghazni, author of mystical poems in the 12th century, and finally, Rumi of Balkh in the 13th century, considered the greatest mystical poet of the Muslim world. The Afghan Pashto literature, although quantitatively remarkable and in great growth in the last century, has always had an essentially local meaning and importance, feeling the influence of both Persian literature and the contiguous literatures of India. Both main literatures from the second half of the 19th century have shown themselves to be sensitive to genres, movements, and stylistic features imported from Europe. Kushal Khan Khattak of the 17th century is considered the national poet. Other notable poets include Rabi'a Baki, Jami, Rahman Baba, Kalalullah Khalili, and Parveen Paswak. Music. Afghan classical music has close historical links with Indian classical music and use the same Hindustani terminology and theories like raga. Genres of this style of music include ghazal, poetic music, and instruments such as the Indian tabla, sitar, and harmonium, and local instruments like zurbagali, as well as daira and tanbur, which are also known in Central Asia, the Caucasus, and the Middle East. The rubab is the country's national instrument and precurses the Indian sarod instrument. Some of the famous artists of classical music include Ustad Sarahang and Sarban. Pop music developed in the 1950s through Radio Kabul and was influential in social change. During this time, female artists also started appearing, at first Merman Parwin. Perhaps the most famous artist of the genre was Ahmad Zahir, who synthesized many genres and continues to be renowned for his voice and rich lyrics long after his death in 1979. That other notable masters of traditional or popular Afghan music include Nasheeniz, Ubaidullah Jan, Malwash, Ahmad Wali, Farhad Daria, and Nagma. Atan is the national dance of Afghanistan, a group dance popularly performed by Afghans of all backgrounds. The dance is considered part of Afghan identity, media, and entertainment. Afghanistan has around 350 radio stations and over 200 television stations. Radio Television Afghanistan, originating from 1925, is the state public broadcaster. Television programs began airing in the 1970s, and today there are many private television channels, such as Tolo and Shamshad TV. The first Afghan newspaper was published in 1873, and there are hundreds of print outlets today. By the 1920s, Radio Kabul was broadcasting local radio services. Voice of America, BBC, and Radio Free Europe/Radio Liberty, RFE/RL, broadcast in both of Afghanistan's official languages on radio. Press restrictions have been gradually relaxed, and private media diversified since 2002, after more than 2 decades of tight controls. Afghans have long been accustomed to watching Indian Bollywood films and listening to its filmy songs. It has been claimed that Afghanistan is among the biggest markets for the Hindi film industry. The stereotypes of Afghans in India, Kabuliwala or Padhani, have also been represented in some Bollywood films by actors. Many Bollywood film stars have roots in Afghanistan, including Salman Khan, Saif Ali Khan, Amir Khan, Faraz Khan, Kader Khan, Nasruddin Shah, Zarin Khan, Selena Jaitli, and a number of others. Several Bollywood films have been shot inside Afghanistan, including Dharmatma, Kuda Gah, Escape from Taliban, and Kabul Express. Cuisine. Afghan cuisine is largely based upon the nation's chief crops, such as wheat, maize, barley, and rice. Accompanying these staples are native fruits and vegetables, as well as dairy products such as milk, yogurt, and whey. Kabuli Palaw is the national dish of Afghanistan. The nation's culinary specialties reflect its ethnic and geographic diversity. Afghanistan is known for its high-quality pomegranates, grapes, and sweet melons. Tea is a favorite drink among Afghans. A typical Afghan diet consists of naan, yogurt, rice, and meat. Holidays and festivals. Afghanistan's official New Year starts with Nowruz, an ancient tradition that started as a Zoroastrian celebration in present-day Iran, and with which it shares the annual celebration along with several other countries. It occurs every year at the vernal equinox. In Afghanistan, Nowruz is typically celebrated with music and dance, as well as holding buzkashi tournaments. Yalda, another nationally celebrated ancient tradition, commemorates the ancient goddess Mitra and marks the longest night of the year on the eve of the winter solstice, Selyizamestin, usually falling on 20 or December 21st, during which families gather together to recite poetry and eat fruit. As a predominantly Muslim country, Islamic events and festivals such as Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr, and Ashura are widely celebrated annually in Afghanistan. The Sikh festival of Vaisakhi is celebrated by the Sikh community, and the Hindu festival Diwali by the Hindu community. National Independence Day is celebrated on August 19th to mark the Anglo-Afghan Treaty of 1919 and the country's full independence. Several international celebrations are also officially held in Afghanistan, such as International Workers' Day and International Women's Day. Some regional festivals include the Red Flower Festival during Nowruz in Mazar-i-Sharif, and the Dambura Festival in Bamyan Province. Sports. Sport in Afghanistan is managed by the Afghan Sports Federation. Cricket and association football are the two most popular sports in the country. The Afghan Sports Federation promotes cricket, association football, basketball, volleyball, golf, handball, boxing, taekwondo, weightlifting, bodybuilding, track and field, skating, bowling, snooker, chess, and other sports. The Afghanistan national basketball team won the first team sports title at the 2010 South Asian Games. In 2012, the country's 3x3 basketball team won the gold medal at the 2012 Asian Beach Games. In 2013, Afghanistan's football team followed as it won the SAFF championship. The Afghan national cricket team, which was formed in 2001, won the 2009 to 10 ICC Intercontinental Cup to IT won the ACC 2020 Cup in 2007, 2009, 2011, and 2013. The team played in the 2015, 2019, and 2023 Cricket World Cups. The Afghanistan Cricket Board, ACB, is the official governing body of the sport and is based in Kabul. The Alakoze Kabul International Cricket Ground serves as the nation's main cricket stadium. There are several other stadiums throughout the country, including the Ghazi Amanullah Khan International Cricket Stadium near Jalalabad. Domestically, cricket is played between teams from different provinces. The Afghanistan national football team has been competing in international football since 1941, but the national team plays its home games at the Ghazi Stadium in Kabul, while football in Afghanistan is governed by the Afghanistan Football Federation. The national team has never competed or qualified for the FIFA World Cup, but won an international football trophy in 2013. But the country also has a national team in the sport of futsal, a five-a-side variation of football. The traditional and the national sport of Afghanistan is buzkashi, particularly popular in the north. That it is similar to polo, played by horsemen in two teams, each trying to grab and hold a goat carcass. The Afghan hound, a type of running dog, originated in Afghanistan and was used in wolf hunting.